A lot of people have talked about the different blocks that's come out with the recent Space Engineers Automaton release, and I'm going to do that too. But I want to focus some on what you don't get unless you purchase the DLC for this game, and see if Space Engineers might be starting to hide a little more than usual behind the paywall. So I'm going to jump right into this and start to talk about all the blocks you get if you don't buy the DLC. Now, the first block we're looking at here is a small grid connector, and this is for small grid builds. I think a lot of people use this for their small grids, but keep in mind that because it has a small port, it doesn't allow all materials to pass through it, so it will have some limited use. Then there is this event controller block. This is the if-then statement to control a lot of things on your builds. You also have the 5 automaton blocks. These are the ones that are really the highlight of this entire release that they've given. Things allow you to control flight and allow you drones to attack and all that. Now, I am going to be covering all these blocks in a lot more detail in future videos when I put them to actual use, but for now I'm just trying to cover the basics of what you do or do not get with the DLC pack. And then there is this air vent block, which I really like. This is a full-size block that has ports on all sides. That is going to get a lot of utility from people because even for myself, I've wanted this block. Next are these willis tubes or willis blocks. These are like little crawl tubes that you can place around your build. These are pretty cool. You know, they're coming in different, kind of slightly different configurations. Some of even have lights on the inside, and you can crouch and crawl through these things, which is nice. I don't know how much people will use them, but you can even place them on their side and things like that. So they're pretty good. Now, there was a little bit of an interesting thing with this block here. It's a slanted block, but I couldn't crawl through it. It blocked me. I wasn't tall enough. I don't know whether this is a failure in my part to use the block or whether it just never got tested to actually be able to crawl through it. I don't know, but it was kind of interesting. So with this one, I did try a little experiment with these blocks and place this angled one on its side, and yes, I was able to still kind of crouch down and crawl through this thing, but I'm not really sure that's even how you're supposed to be able to use this block. It was a little bizarre, but you know, again, I'd like to know if I'm misusing this block in some way. It was just kind of a strange block, I thought. This one also has a cover that you can put over some of these openings here, so you can cover over some of them. And of course, they come in T-junctions and cross junctions and things like that. Again, I don't know how much these are going to get used, but I do think they're kind of a cool feature in the game. It's always nice to have another block to build with. Next was this conveyor cover. Now, I was a little disappointed because I actually thought I'd be able to open the cover of this conveyor block. We're going to see another block that does that later, but I thought this was the one. But this just allows you to cover up those entrances to the conveyor tubes a little bit. But in reality, you can actually just place this cover anywhere, just on a blank wall or wherever you want. It'll actually stick anywhere. It's kind of like that cover to the willis tube. You could just place that anywhere, even though it's designed to go over those openings of the willis tube. Next is this, what they call a center panel block. And in case you're wondering what that is, most of the blocks either for these like little thin walls will be on one side or the other of the voxel square. But this is one that's placed right in the center. And I can see a lot of creativity being used with that center block. Next is the 2x2 wheel, and it does come with a special 2x2 suspension that goes along with it. So you kind of need to use this suspension with this wheel for the most part. But yeah, it's always nice to have another size wheel. This will give a lot more options in the build. So this is it. This is what you get if you don't buy the DLC. And it's not a bad array. You do get a small connector, you get the main event controller block, that's huge, you get the 5 automaton blocks, the full-size air vent, the willis tubes, the little cover for the conveyor tubes, the center wall, and the wheels. Next, I'm going to move on to what you get if you buy the DLC, and kind of let you see what the differences here are. So first of all, we start off with a programmable block. It's just a variant of the standard one we get. It kind of sits in the corner with these little little short-shaped walls. It has no additional functionality than the regular programmable block, but it does look different. So this is kind of a cosmetic block, but it's a nice little form of it. You also get this automaton sensor. Again, this works just like the regular round sensor, but it's a square version of that same sensor. You get another cosmetic difference in a timer block. So you get a special automaton timer block, no additional functionality, but each side of it does have a little bit of a different look to it. So you can position this around and kind of get it to look the way you want, because a lot of times you will have a whole series of timer blocks for a lot of special mechanics. So again, another block, but it's cosmetic. You have these two blocks here. These are angled walls. One comes with little struts that you see on the left. The other one has no struts on the right. Again, purely another build block, but this is an extra. It's an extra little build thing. It's nothing functional that would be taken away from you, but it is an extra block, two extra blocks, or two forms of the block that you'll get with the DLC package. Next is this block here, and I really like this block. It's the inset light, and even though this kind of looks just like the regular interior light, because it's inset into the block, it doesn't use an extra voxel space out in front of the block. And I can't tell you how many times I've wanted a block like this because of my build or whatever I've got going on, I don't have a spare block sitting out there, and I can't put a light in it. This allows me to use the space to be able to have that block. The back side of it also has some nice decorative features to it here. So, even the back side of the block looks good, but this inset light is really good. This will be really, really useful in a lot of different situations where you're in a tight space. Another just build block are these pipes. They have no functional use. They're just cosmetic, but you can arrange them vertically, you can arrange them horizontally, and there are two versions of these. On this version, it even has a little bit of side cosmetic there with these pipes that are sticking out. I think that's pretty nice. The back of the blocks is nothing special, but the front is pretty cool, and you could line some of these up. I could see people using these just to trick out their builds a little bit. Now here come to a whole series of these kind of remote panel blocks. And these are really cool. Some of them actually have functionality. So this first one, if you open it up, it actually is interactable. It has a control panel inside. And I think I'm actually going to use this one. I really like this idea of sort of hiding your control panels back behind one of these things. So that is a functional block because it's got the remote control. It's just in this nice decorative block. Now this next one, even though I've got it arranged this way, again, you can turn these things any way you want. This little panel that opens up, it looks like it might have a remote control on the inside, but it doesn't. There's nothing functional on the inside of this block. This is purely for decoration. And again, you can, orient this vertically, horizontally, any way that you want. But I do like the fact that it at least has a mechanical opening to it. This next one is hot. And I'm probably going to use this on my big door. It's just got a big red button in the middle. Makes you want to push that button. So, if you just want a simple, control on, control off, or whatever, you can have a couple of these setting around, something just a simple button push. I like that though. And I will probably use it on my big door, my big hangar doors, to just like open the door by pushing the big red button. So this is pretty cool, but you don't get this unless you buy the DLC. There are other things that are button push panels, and you don't have to have it, but it's a nice little extra feature. Now this one here, this is a little double hatch, and I've put it on a regular armor block, and you can see the little hatches open up, so you can place one of these things anywhere. Now I think its real functionality is coming here that we see on the cargo container, where it covers the cargo container box, and you can still interact with the cargo opening behind it. So if you don't want to have all your little ports all exposed and everything, you can put this little hatchway over it and it'll cover it up. This is interesting because that other hatch we saw that you would get that did not come with the DLC, it didn't open. So if you want an opening hatch, you have to buy the DLC, and it comes with this little double. Now these fans, again, these are functional, these are air vents. They work just like the regular air vents, but they have the fans, they've got the ports all the way around. Again, really nice. You still get that all around port access like you did over here with the regular air vent. This is the standard air vent that we've always had that has ports on every side. So you still get that functionality without the DLC, but here you get it with the fan. And I think the fans are cool. As long as they're powered, they're moving, but you get a full-size fan block and the original half-size fan. I would have used these in my little control room where I had an air vent on the floor, and I didn't want to have a little half chasm to step down into. I wanted to keep it flush with the floor, my air vent, so this would have come in really handy. But this is with the DLC package. Again, you don't have to have it to play the game, but it's a nice functional block if you want the cool fan look. Next were these signs. Now they came with 13 signs. These are all pre-made. You don't get to go in and customize these signs in any way. There was 13 of these, and I like these. I'll probably stick some of these around on my build, especially when it says storage area. It's very simple, but yeah, put a couple of these around. I like the 0G zone. That actually might be very useful when you're going into an area where you don't have any gravity. And then there's this block. This might actually be one of the coolest blocks. It's the emote control block that they provided. And so you can put on this emote control a whole series. They've got a bunch of different emote faces that you can put on this block. But really, this block does just a little bit more. With this block, you can actually go in and change it. You can change its setting. So here, I'm going to go in, I'm going to access this emote control block, and I'm going to set it to display it not on the block itself, but on a different block. So you can select any block on the grid that has some kind of display panel associated with it. I'm going to use my custom turret controller that I've got attached in my main ship. I'm going to set it to the skeptical emote face and now see what happens. It's really kind of interesting. The emote control block itself just kind of goes to an online mode, just like that, because I've actually set it to cast its picture elsewhere. I showed the back of the block for a minute because it does have kind of some interesting angles to it. But if we fly over here to my big ship where I've got the remote control turret, you can see the face in there. So you can use this block to sort of cast these emotes somewhere, anywhere in your ship, on your remote control turret, anywhere where you have one of these little LCD displays. I actually might use that in some ways. That's almost functional. Because if I tie that now to the event controller, whenever a block reaches a certain state, or maybe something bad happens, then the little face would pop up and I might be able to actually see the state that wouldn't normally occur to me because of data readouts. So it could almost be functional as well as fun to have these different faces coming up and giving you warnings of different states. The last two blocks I want to look at are these two saddle cockpits. Now they're pretty cool. They're meant for like hover bikes or something like that for the most part, but you could use them anywhere. They are small grid and they come in two variants. They come in one that is 3 wide, 3 small blocks wide, and it's got a conveyor port right there on the front. That's going to be very handy for passing through materials, as well as a conveyor port on the back. So you get kind of that full flow through of materials through a small port, mind you. Not everything can fit through there. It even has a couple little displays there, which is really nice. The other one has the same kind of dual displays, but it has no port, and it's only 2 blocks wide. And this is pretty good. This would fit on a build whether you're making it an even number of blocks wide or an odd number of blocks wide. You kind of get the 3 wide variant and the 2 wide variant. So again, these are only available with the DLC. Now the question is that a major problem? And you can see I've kind of built out and added two other blocks. This has nothing to do with the Automaton update. One is a rover cockpit that also kind of has that same open air feel to it. It's, 2 blocks wide here and, has even more displays down front. It's a nice open air kind of thing. So you wouldn't, if you wanted that feel, you wouldn't have to have those blocks. There's even this chair, just the basic chair, and you could build stuff around it, right? You could sort of make, a little angled console in front, put some glass around it, around the sides. You could even just use this chair. So there are blocks you could use if you wanted that open air feel of a cockpit, where you wouldn't have to have these 2 saddle variants that come with the DLC. So this really leads to that question. Is Space Engineers starting to lock functionality behind their DLC? And at first I kind of looked at these saddle things, and I started to ask myself the question about these other blocks. Would I like to have that top-mounted camera for placement purposes rather than always having the camera front and center? And that would be convenient. The answer is yes. Would I want to be able to cover up my conveyor openings and still be able to open them up and to be able to access the conveyor, but have that option of keeping them covered? And that answer, of course, is yes. Do I have to have it? No, I could just always leave them uncovered. With this emote controller, is this cool? Would I like to have this? Would I like to cast it to LCDs and, like I said, have some functionality there? Yes. And I also didn't show you that it had a side panel here. There's also a way to control the emote controller from the actual control block itself. I liked that. And then, of course, this inset light. This is truly a nice block here because, like I said, that very small little interior light takes up a full voxel in front of it. And there's been a lot of times where in my build, I just don't have a free voxel space to be able to put a light. And I would like to have had this block. So do I have to have this block to fully enjoy the game? This is a bit of a tricky answer. I feel like I can do all the core things I need to do in the game, but all these DLCs add a lot of spice. And I do think that they've cut a nice line of not locking things like the event controller and the 5 automaton blocks that give you that high level of drone control. If they had locked those behind the DLC, then the answer, I think, is definitely yes. We're now getting behind a paywall to be able to play the game. With these things, it's right on the fence, and I still think they're making a smart choice by making nice things in the DLC attractive for people to buy it without really taking away core functionality. It still feels that way, but it's right on the edge. They're probably making a good decision. But I'd really like to hear your opinion about this. I think Space Engineers has probably done about as good as any game that I've seen of cutting that line in their DLC and not locking content away. But tell me what you think, because you can't actually have the emote control block without the DLC. It is kind of a functional block. So I would be curious to know what you think about this. Put your thoughts down in the comment below. I really am curious to know what people think about this topic. And until next time, I'll be talking to you later.